By the end of the 18th century, London was the largest city in Europe, with a population of around 900,000. Yet it functioned without a modern police force, without a sewage system, and for much of the century with only a single bridge crossing the River Thames. This project aims to understand how the city operated at street level by examining what London actually looked like in the 1700s through historical records. This channel covers cities and eras as they truly were, through historically grounded reconstructions. Before we move into the video, if you find this kind of evidence-based historical exploration interesting, you can subscribe to the channel and support us for future videos. Let's begin. In the 1700s, London occupied a unique position within its long history. After the Great Fire of London in 1666, it had been largely rebuilt, with brick and stone replacing timber structures. Despite this, the city's underlying structure was still medieval. Streets were irregular and narrow, shaped over centuries without planning. At the same time, London was expanding westward at a scale not seen before. Georgian terraced houses, formal squares, and new residential developments turned areas such as Mayfair, Bloomsbury, and Marylebone into desirable districts for the wealthy. This century was also the period when London became the world's largest port and financial centre. Trade conducted through the East India Company, Atlantic commerce tied to enslaved labour, and naval power connected the city directly to markets across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. These global links were not abstract concepts. They directly influenced what Londoners ate, wore, drank, and consumed. The empire was felt not only at docks and warehouses, but also in kitchens, wardrobes, and daily habits. Despite this wealth, the city was demographically fragile. Between 1700 and 1800, the population rose from around 575,000 to about 900,000, yet deaths exceeded births throughout the entire century. London could grow only through constant migration from the countryside. The population lost to disease, malnutrition, and the dangers of urban life was replaced by newcomers. The sense of time was also different in 18th century London. There was no electric light, no standardized working hours, and no rapid transportation. Daily life was shaped by natural light, church bells, and market schedules. Although life might seem slower, it was physically demanding. Almost everything required manual effort. In this video, you will travel through London strictly within the 18th century. The aim is to understand how the city functioned in this specific historical moment and what everyday life looked like for the people who lived there. 18th century London was divided into areas, each with different functions. The City of London remained the commercial and financial centre. Its streets were cramped and narrow, filled with merchants' houses, counting rooms, guild buildings, and churches. St. Paul's Cathedral, rebuilt by Christopher Wren and completed in 1711, dominated the skyline and symbolised London's recovery after fire and disease. To the west, Westminster was the political centre. Parliament, Westminster Abbey, and royal buildings made it the heart of government. The West End, between the city and Westminster, was developing rapidly. Large aristocratic estates were transformed into planned squares and terraces with uniform brick houses. Addresses such as Grosvenor Square and Berkeley Square were symbols of wealth and social status. South of the Thames, East London and Southwark were largely working-class areas. Docks, warehouses, breweries, tanneries, and slaughterhouses were concentrated there. The environment reflected the nature of the work: heavy labour, crowded housing, and constant smells. These districts were closely tied to the river. The river served as work, transportation, and a means of waste disposal. These spatial divisions also reinforced social boundaries. Where a person lived largely determined where they worked, shopped, and socialized. Movement between districts was possible, but most people's daily lives took place within a limited geography, shaped by class and occupation. The River Thames divided the city and functioned both as a barrier and as a transport route. Until 1750, the only crossing over the river was London Bridge. The opening of Westminster Bridge and the completion of Blackfriars Bridge in 1769 fundamentally changed river crossings. Journeys that once required long detours or boat travel became more predictable, and this enabled new areas to develop. London Bridge, meanwhile, retained its houses and shops until the 1760s, preserving a medieval appearance even in the Georgian era. London's population was remarkably diverse for its time. French Huguenot refugees worked as silk weavers in Spitalfields, Irish workers, African servants and freed people, Jewish merchants, and Indian sailors lived across the city. By the middle of the century, London was not only a commercial centre, but also a major cultural hub, with theatres, publishing houses, and institutions such as the Royal Academy, founded in 1768. Most London streets had no pavements. Pedestrians, horses, carts, and animals shared the same surfaces, which were often muddy and uneven. In wealthier areas, posts and chains placed along building fronts provided limited protection for pedestrians. Street widths varied greatly. Newly built streets were wide, while older passages in the city could be only a few meters across. In older districts, open drainage channels ran through the streets, carrying waste towards the Thames. Hackney carriages provided paid transport, while sedan chairs allowed the wealthy to move through crowded areas. Street sellers were everywhere. The food, clothing, and services they sold became part of the city's daily rhythm. Their cries were so familiar that Londoners recognized the city not only by sight, but also by sound. By modern standards, London was extremely noisy. Church bells rang often, iron wheels echoed on cobblestones, animals crowded the streets, and workshops produced constant sound. All movement and labor depended on human or animal power. There was no engine, no machine, and no mechanical hum, only physical effort and repetition. Physical fatigue was a constant part of urban life. Walking long distances, carrying loads, and standing for hours were ordinary activities. Even short journeys required effort, making proximity between home, work, and market essential. Weather strongly affected daily life. Heavy rain turned streets into channels of mud and waste, and winter ice made stone surfaces dangerous. Fog reduced visibility and limited travel, especially at night. These conditions pushed people to remain on familiar routes. Class differences were immediately visible in clothing. The wealthy wore elaborate garments, powdered wigs, and fine shoes. The middle class dressed more simply but neatly. The working class often wore worn, rough fabrics and frequently walked barefoot. Many had only a single outfit. Children dressed like adults, and poor children wore old and patched clothing. Smell was unavoidable. Horse manure, human waste, coal smoke, industrial residue, and market odors filled the air. Chamber pots were emptied into the streets, especially in the mornings. Tanneries and slaughterhouses intensified the stench, and coal smoke blackened buildings and lungs. Markets formed the foundation of London's daily economy. Covent Garden was the fruit and vegetable market. Billingsgate was the fish market. Smithfield served as a major livestock market. Leadenhall and Borough Market supplied meat, dairy, and other basic goods. Street markets in working-class districts ensured that those far from major markets could still access necessities. Market activity followed daily and seasonal rhythms. Deliveries arrived before dawn, trade peaked in the morning, and unsold goods were quickly discounted or repurposed. Shortages in winter, in particular, directly affected survival. The goods on display reflected London's global connections. Sugar, tobacco, coffee, tea, and chocolate became increasingly common. Textiles from India and China were sold alongside local products. Apothecaries offered spices and medicines brought from across the empire. These goods were no longer rare curiosities, but part of everyday consumption. Retail habits changed during the century. In earlier periods, shops were small and dark, and bargaining was normal. By the middle of the century, large shops with display windows appeared, and fixed prices turned shopping into a social activity. Pawnbrokers and second-hand markets were vital for the poor. Trust and reputation mattered. Regulation was inconsistent, and complaints about food adulteration were widespread. Wealthy Londoners lived in Georgian houses built in rows. These brick houses rose several stories. Basements were used for kitchens and servants. Main floors held reception rooms, and upper floors contained bedrooms. Interiors had fireplaces, decorative plasterwork, imported wallpaper, and lighting from candles or oil lamps. Yet despite their elegance, these houses were cold and dim. Working-class housing was extremely crowded and unhealthy. Large houses were subdivided into single-room living spaces. Dark, airless courtyards and narrow passages were common. Shared toilets were used, and clean water was bought or carried from public pumps. Furniture was sparse. Many people slept on the floor or shared beds. Daily life was shaped by scarcity. Water had to be carried, fuel gathered, and waste managed manually. Washing clothes required shared areas or riverside access. Privacy was almost non-existent. Sounds traveled easily in these crowded spaces, and individual hardship became a shared experience. The worst areas were the slum districts known as rookeries. Buildings collapsed, families lived in cellars, and disease spread rapidly. Typhus, smallpox, and tuberculosis were constant threats. The River Thames was London's main transport route. Water taxis carried passengers, and docks lined both banks downstream from London Bridge. For heavy goods, river transport was often faster and cheaper than the streets. The construction of new bridges reduced the importance of watermen and changed connections between neighborhoods. Within the city, road quality varied widely. Wealthier areas had stone paving, while poorer districts had dirt or gravel roads. Hackney carriages were uncomfortable and expensive. Outside the city, turnpike roads improved long-distance travel, but highwaymen remained a serious threat. For most of the century, London had no official police force. Security relied on watchmen, magistrates, and after 1749, a small group known as the Bow Street Runners. Crime was widespread, especially theft. Public executions at Tyburn drew large crowds and became spectacles that reinforced authority. Disease was an even greater threat. Smallpox, typhus, and tuberculosis killed thousands. Vaccination appeared only at the end of the century. The risk of fire was constant. Private fire brigades intervened only for insured buildings. Fear shaped people's daily behavior, their routes, and the boundaries of neighborhoods. After dark, most people withdrew indoors. Street lighting was very limited. The wealthy found their way with the help of torch-bearing guides. Night soilmen emptied cesspits at night. Taverns, coffee houses, and theaters stayed open, and prostitution increased in entertainment districts. Night movement was careful and cautious. People avoided unfamiliar streets and relied on known places and lit areas. Darkness could make even familiar streets feel uncertain and risky. Coffee houses were centers of business and political discussion. Institutions such as Lloyd's emerged from these spaces. Pleasure gardens offered evening social life, and in harsh winters, when the Thames froze, fairs were held on the ice. 18th century London was defined by contradictions. It was the richest city in the world, yet it also contained deep poverty. It was a pre-industrial city, dependent on animal power and candlelight, yet tightly connected to global trade. The gin crisis, public executions, and coffeehouse culture were distinctive features of the period. These conditions were not temporary crises, but a long-lasting system that continued for decades. London functioned successfully by 18th century standards, while revealing the limits of pre-modern urban organization. In the 1700s, London was a city of around 900,000 people, functioning without modern infrastructure. It grew not through natural increase, but through migration. It survived through informal systems, private enterprise, and human adaptation. Global wealth and extreme crowding, disease, and insecurity existed side by side. Understanding this period requires evaluating London on its own terms. It belongs neither to the medieval world nor to the Victorian era. It is a distinct historical moment that contributed to the shaping of the modern city. If you would like to see another city or era reconstructed in this way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments what you would like to see in the next videos.